At the tone, please record your message. When you have finished recording, you may hang up or press 1 for more options.
Man, this dog pees on everything. Come on, dog. Come on. I'm doggy sitting, Steven. I'm right now taking a walk with the dog. It's my friend's dog. She had to go away, so I'm doggy sitting. That's right. I've been trusted to take care of the dog. Okay, doggy, good doggy.
Steven, I just looked over to the right, and the dog's nose was a centimeter or maybe even a millimeter from my tripod foot. My tripod leg.
Tripod must smell like cheese.
No, she just wants to be closer to me, like most women. They want to be closer to me. But I'm like, if your nose messes up my tripod, Steven is going to be the upset one. Not me, Steven.
That bitch better not touch it.
Hey, who are you calling a bitch?
I mean, she is, right? A female dog?
Steven, she prefers to go by they, them.
Oh, excuse me.
And she will let you, sorry, they, them, they will let you know about their pronouns.
I'm seriously debating on bringing Chip into work tomorrow.
Are you?
I might. My only concern is, again, if he's like really rowdy with her or something and we're upstairs trying to film, or if he, I don't know, tries to mark his territory or something because another dog is there.
If he tries to piss in my house, my studio, he's going to be slapped.
Of course.
He's going to wait outside.
I don't think he will. And at that point, worst comes to worst, I just drive home and drop him off. But I don't know, maybe during lunch, I'll run home, grab him. I would really like him to meet her because they are very much the same dog. Everything about them, they do the same exact things.
Well, we have outside, so they can just go sit outside together. My friend, her dog, she had 2 dogs here, and they just lounged outside while we were in here working.
Yeah, we could always do that too.
But actually, the thing is that, what's the name of this dog that I'm watching?
Willie.
Yeah, sorry. My brain keeps going to like Charlie, my ex-girlfriend's dog.
Yeah.
I keep wanting to call her Charlie, but she's Willie. So moral of the story, I'm watching my friend's dog. She had to go to the Ohio State University for a conference, and she needed someone to watch the Doge. So I'm like, I'll watch the Doge. And so the dog gets to stay with me for a couple of days. And this is a really good dog. She's really good with
really
people.
Is.
She loves everything. She's nice. She'll sit on your foot so she can be petted. She'll raise her paw so that you can pet underneath her chest. And when you're walking her, if the leash is between her legs, she'll like lift her own foot to get it out of the way.
Smart dog.
Yeah, she's good like that.
The best too is when you're petting her and she does like the lean and pretty much sits on your foot or on you. And my dog does the same thing. It's super cute.
The only issue with her is she's afraid of stairs for some reason.
Kind of weird.
But I get her to come up the stairs here at the studio to the 4 steps. It's hard to get her up the steps to my house, which is like 4 steps. But sometimes I can coax her into doing it. Coming down, it takes her a while. And then my friend is like, you could just have her stay downstairs. I think she might attack the cat. Be careful. So when I came into the house yesterday with the dog, Kitty was downstairs. Kitty just walked over, sniffed the dog. The dog went sniff, and then the dog just ignored the cat. So they're fine. And then when I was watching TV on the sofa, Kitty was on my right arm, and the dog was sitting to my left. And it was perfectly fine. And so the funny thing is, I went upstairs after I fed the dog, after taking her for a walk when I got home. And by the way, this isn't just Doge talk. We're going to get to all the photo stuff in a minute, but
Next
this is what's going on.
Dogecoin.
In our life. I go upstairs to pet the kitty when I get home, and I shut the door so the dog can't come up. Or not that I didn't expect the dog to come up because my friend's like, she won't go up your stairs. You know how steep my stairs are at my house.
And it's not because of a hip issue or anything like that. She's actually scared of stairs, correct?
I think, where are you, dog? Where are you going? Where is she going right now?
You just hear clanking on the wooden floor.
Hold on. I don't think she can get in trouble over there. She's just taking a walk. She just stepped
Peeing
over
on
my
all your
gear.
Canon gear.
Well, she just stepped over my gear, so I don't know what's going on. But anyway, I have really steep stairs, and it's like tall, because my ceilings are 16, 17, 18 feet tall at home.
In your mansion,
and so my mansion. So the stairs are pretty high. So she's like, yeah, she's afraid she won't go up your stairs. So I'm just ready to come back downstairs to talk to the dog. I open the door to my upstairs, and the dog is just standing there to come in. So the dog comes in upstairs. I'm like, I guess she's coming upstairs. I don't know how she's going to get down them because she's afraid. But she ended up going down the stairs too, which was fine. And then since she followed me up at night, I just let her sleep in my bed because I didn't want the kitty and the dog to have an interaction at night while I was sleeping. And the next thing I hear is running and things breaking. And the good thing about the dog, She's much quieter than most women, and she just laid in bed, or men. Not that actually, I did sleep with this one guy once. Great story.
There it is.
Great story. No, I was out on the road with Silvertide at the time, or maybe they were in a different band. And Walt Lafty, the lead singer, we didn't have a hotel room. They had a hotel room, and he had a big bed. And I'm like, I didn't know where I was going to sleep. I had like one shot of Jack Daniels.
That's all it takes for you, right?
They were drinking. But this was I was 25, right? So I was much younger. I didn't really drink or anything. And so I'm just sitting there in the bed. I'm laying down. Next thing you know, I'm out. And then I wake up and I guess I slept with Walt that night, the lead singer of the band.
What else did you do?
We did nothing. Everything. Wait, why was my butt hurting? And why was my jaw hurting too? Too soon? But anyway, the dog just jumped up into bed and went to sleep, and that was great all night.
Chip sleeps with us every night, and as much as I love it, it's a 75, 80-pound dog sleeping in between you and sometimes on me. I'll wake up in the middle of the night, and he'll be like literally spread eagle on top of me. I'm like, oh! I try and move him. He growls. He gets all annoyed, pretty much thinking it's his bed. But again, I do love it, so it's hard to be like annoyed about it.
Anyway, moving into the show, this is episode number 73 of RAWtalk, where we talk raw about whatever the hell we want to talk about. Dog Talk. Welcome back to Dog Talk 73. A lot of things to talk about. We're getting back into the swing of things here at the studio.
Yes.
I discovered broadcast channels on Instagram. Petapixel, I got something to say about that, which Steven won't be happy about. Annie Leibovitz is selling my next house. Talk about the behind the scenes of the baseball and how that all came up the other day. We got haptic feedback in cameras, Canon rumors for the R1, Apple iPhone stuff, and Sony celebrating 10 years. There's quite a lot to get to today.
And we'll probably only get to about half of it, as usual.
Right. Well, because you talk too much about other stuff that doesn't matter.
It's definitely me.
And it's all about you.
Mm-hmm.
So getting back into the swing of things, we filmed a user guide yesterday on the R100
painful.
from Canon. I was just reading today that they finally quietly discontinued the M line,
Yes.
which I said was going to happen all along.
R50 replaced the M50.
Still think the M100 was a solid offering. The M100 Mark II or R6 Mark II, they were quality cameras.
The M6 Mark II was solid.
They were you could put in, you had to buy a separate EVF for the top that went into the hot shoe and digitally passed through the stuff. Solid cameras, just didn't make sense with lens choices.
Mm-hmm.
Adapting pro lens, but they were good. They had a lot of technology in them, but they finally did away with it, which is totally fine because they moved on to the R100, the R7.
One mouse
R7.
to rule them all.
Is it R7? R7, R10,
Yeah, there's an
R50. So there's a lot of them. So anyway, we got back into making a user guide because we couldn't do anything while we were moving, and then Steven had a kid, and then there's backup of content to make. There's a lot to make leading into the end of the year.
That, and one of the main issues is that, we only have limited sets set up right now. I think it's like Fix, which is still a makeshift set. Your desk set up. I just did a makeshift user guide set for now because, again, we're waiting on blinds, which hopefully should be here next week, and I cannot wait because as I was building this new set, I had to pretty much move these giant shelves / walls, I guess, and put them in front of the windows to try and block and control this light because the exposure was going all over the place right before we were going to film.
Yeah. We're getting situated. It's not going to be done before the end of the year. Everything just takes time, and we're working on it.
Well, once we get the blinds, it's full steam ahead. I think we'll be good.
Yeah, well, you're going to build out the sets. We probably have to go to IKEA to buy cheap-looking background stuff again.
Shitty stuff that looks great on camera.
It would be pretty cool to make different sets and have different set walls, which we can have someone build, and it's more like a room. Like we could do like a 1980s room with Nintendo or
we
N64.
were saying like a Wayne's World style room, but decked out with old cameras, like an SX70 and stuff like that.
We have so much stuff.
Yeah,
we have so much stuff. We could build out those sets as long as we could we can shoot on them as long as it makes sense.
Oh yeah.
So we just have to make sure it makes sense to light it and make fun little sets. And I don't see a problem with doing that. I think it would be kind of cool.
And you got to keep in mind, all you really need is a tiny wall space behind you for the most part, or shooting in a corner. You don't have to build this giant 10 by 12 room set because what's on camera is only going to be a small 6-foot section, 8-foot section, whatever it may be for the most part, unless we're shooting ultra wide, which we rarely do.
Yeah, we should definitely. It might be 3 walls. It might be 3 walls.
Yep, give me a corner and I'm good to go.
I think we've got neon signs. We've got Nikon signs, Canon signs, Fuji blimp. We got a ton of really cool stuff that could be cool. And we could just go thrifting and buy some old desks and old TV consoles and put them in the corner.
Yeah, and we were even saying like maybe do some kind of graffiti mural of some sort, and then that's where we put all the light up signs, the neon signs everywhere, and make it like the street vibe. I think that would be really interesting and cool. It'd be a little hard to light, but it would be a cool look.
It could. So we'll get to that. Let's talk about broadcast channels. Did you know
this has been around, by the way? I'm surprised you're just finding it.
No, I know it's been around, and I've ignored it every which way that it's been around. Have you used them? Do you follow any broadcast channels?
No, I get notifications every once in a while. When it first popped up, I don't know, months ago, I guess, I checked out one of the feeds. I forget who it was.
No, what it does is it sends messages directly to people's inboxes. I think it sends it right to their inboxes on Instagram. And they can only give you feedback in terms of, they can give you emojis. They can just reply that way. So it's really not having a conversation. Suck. Oh, well, I mean, let me see. I'm looking in there right now. Share to story, invite collaborator.
Well, Nicole got a notification yesterday, I think last night. She's like, what is this? Frono's Photo broadcast channel?
Well, I think I accidentally posted something to a broadcast channel once, and thankfully it wasn't a dick pic. It was...
I've seen it before. I've seen something about your broadcast channel when it first came out.
Oh, okay.
Not that second part.
Yeah. No, so... The only thing that was on my broadcast channel was one of these, hey, are you guys a couple? How did you meet? Because I was trying to send it to somebody, and I guess it went to the broadcast channel. Thankfully, it was that and not some other thing that's like some South Park joke about something that people would take the wrong way.
Everything you send me, basically.
Well, basically, I send you funny stuff that I find funny that people would find
offensive,
not funny, offensive. But I find offensive to be funny in many situations because it's a joke. It's called humor.
I think most people do. They're just scared to say it.
I say it, Steven. But
you're not publicly sharing some of this racist South Park stuff.
It's not racist if it's on TV, Steven. No, it's South Park. You get that it's a joke, and it's a joke.
Push it to the limit for sure.
Well, it's South Park and Family Guy stuff is really predominantly the stuff that I'll share with you.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's funny, and I like jokes.
Welcome
I like
to
self-deprecating humor. Shitty walk. Remember when I was in the airport in Denver, and I think I was on the phone with you, and I'm like, Steven, I'm in Denver. They have a shitty walk here. There's a shitty walk right there.
Where we sell shitty chicken, shitty shrimp.
Shitty this.
Not doing the accent.
I just got a text. From someone that says, "Why are you spamming me via your IG broadcast channel?" Is it really spam?
I don't know.
He says, I'm kidding. Relax. Oh, I'm asking them, is it good or bad? This is live. I'm getting this information. You ready to move on from broadcast channels?
Maybe because I don't follow you?
I'm going to try it out, but 1,000 people saw it. Maybe it's I'll try not to sell too much through it, but it's a good way. It's kind of like my text line, which I don't really use that extensively. I don't want to abuse it. He's saying good, but too much text, in my opinion. Wait, is it supposed to just be photos? I posted a photo. Oh, now he says he's messing with me again. How about I say, fuck you?
Who is this? Do I know this person?
It's Madeline K from Nikon PR.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah. No, it's cool and smart. So he's saying it.
So it looks like you're DMing me personally, but you're not. You're sending that as a broadcast feed out to everybody that's joined on your broadcast, right?
Yeah, it's like a one-way message. Yeah. Well, it's a one-way message because people can't message me back. So it says I have 4,500 people following the channel.
Oh, so I can just react to your
you can
messages.
React. But what's cool is 1,000 people
report.
Oh, Jesus. 1,000 people have already seen that last post. So out of 4,500 people, to have 1,000 people in less than an hour see the post is a really good metric. Now, I don't want to overdo these things, but I like it for giving a little bit of extra information on certain stuff.
Well, and you just hope that people will just leave the broadcast feed versus, leaving your actual full Instagram account and unfollowing you. Yeah,
but also it's kind of like I don't want to just put Insta stories in here for these people, and you want your Insta stories to be seen, and I don't just want to share my Insta stories into the broadcast channel, because then it's just like, well, if they didn't want to see the story and now
Correct.
I'm spamming their channel, it becomes a pain in the ass. So I don't follow anybody's broadcast channel. It's kind of like it's a one-way street. I'm just putting stuff out there. But maybe it's a thing that I could do like I do with the text line that, hey, I need to critique some stuff. This is just going to you people on the text line or you people in the broadcast channel.
Yeah, that's cool.
Maybe it's something to do, something to use. I'm not sure. But remember the 360 video you put out?
Yes.
It's a good video. Do you know I did another one?
Did you? Like running on the field?
Yeah, I did another one.
Okay.
We didn't post it, but I saved it. It's up on the Dropbox.
Don't think you showed me that one.
It's up on the Dropbox. It's just I did it again.
Is there anything different, interesting to show, or is it just the same thing pretty much?
I held the camera out more when I wasn't shooting.
Okay. Is there anyone yelling at you this time or telling you
no one
to
yelled
back
at me
up?
this time. No one yelled at me this time, but I was actually using the 10 to 20 f4 from Canon for the entire field thing. So it worked fine. It's a little wide for a lot of stuff, and I think if they go to the World Series, because I'm not able to shoot game 6 and 7 if it goes 6 and 7 for this round. If the Diamondbacks come back to win a bunch of games, if the Diamondbacks win 2 of the next 3 games, it's coming back to Philly. If the Diamondbacks lose 2 of the next 3 games, then the Phillies go to the World Series, and I'll be away with my dad in Vegas for his birthday, for his 75th birthday, where he wanted to go if it comes to game 6 and 7 in Philly. So, I mean, for the way that I look at it is if the Phillies don't make it to the World Series, it doesn't matter if I'm there. And if they win at home, then they go to the World Series. I already did that part last year where they clinched, right? And I would like to be in that celebration, but it's not a big deal.
Well, you hope to be in the World Series celebration at that point. I hope
the World Series is more important than anything for me as a photographer standpoint, because I've already done the rest. And we did the World Series and ended up losing last year. And I'm starting to think, how would I shoot the next celebration? And I think the way that I would shoot the next celebration would possibly be, again, with the 28 to 70. I know it's not wide, but it gives you that separation and it gives you something different. And then when I do the group photo, I'll probably have a second camera that I switch off to and get, either the 10 to 20. I think the 10 to 20 is fine for that. So I just stand up a little bit, because last time
I was wider than that. Yeah.
Well, I don't need 10. You just need a little bit more than that. But I was too low. So when I looked at what the Phillies and the other people did, they were up crouching, or even Miles held the camera above his head so that you could see everybody, and that was a better angle. So I learned from that. So that's what I learned there. But I also need to prepare that if they do that and they end up winning something, that I have to have my 100 to 300 with me, because there's going to be a presentation of the trophies, the MVPs, and all of that. So you want to make sure you have a tighter lens, and I think a 1 to 3 is going to be perfect for that. But before we get into the behind the scenes and me using the 100 to 300 and all the things about that, I know we talk a lot about the baseball, but it's that time of year, and there is a lot of good learning stuff that transitions into whatever you're shooting. Just put yourself into a situation that is similar to what I'm doing. It could be Fashion Week. It could be a farm with 4-H club parading
any event.
Any event, yes. So we put up that 360 footage, and everybody, sans a couple of commenters, loved that video and thought it was amazing, and you didn't have to be a Philly fan to enjoy it. It was just a different look, watching me work and seeing what it was like to join into the fray. And that, you think, would be a good piece of content for a photo website to want to share with their followers. A site named Petapixel, to be exact. You think it would be good for them to post it. They post things like, photographer hit in groin with football. That is a great story that a lot of people need to do. Or a hiker dies taking a selfie and falling off of a cliff. Like, that's a great post on Petapixel. That's something you definitely should be posting about. I sent this over to one of their writers. Their writer was super excited to post about it. He was asking me all these questions about, how did I do this? What was I thinking? How did this work? What could you do better? Asking me everything that a writer would write in an article. And so he's like, oh, this is going to be great. Dead silence for 3 days after I do it. I send him a message, nothing. Then I'm like, I think I know my answer to what's going on. And their reply was, I'm not sure why they don't want to post it. And I'm like, I am. I know why they don't want to post it.
Why?
Because their editor-in-chief doesn't want to give me any light of day, because he's jealous of the success that we have.
Oh, okay.
So he doesn't want to give me light of day, but we don't need the Petapixel push. I wanted to put it out there because I wanted more people to see it, because it didn't do as well on YouTube as I wanted it to do. Not that it would have gotten a huge push, because we've seen in the past when our stuff has been posted there, that it hasn't gotten that big push that it used to back in the day, partly because Petapixel has become just a cesspool of incessant 8 to 10 posts a day. I liked Petapixel when it was run by Michael Zhang, and he would do like 3 news stories a day in photography, and your stuff wouldn't just get buried. Because I feel bad for Jordan and Chris when their stories get buried after like 4 hours, their stuff gets buried.
Yeah.
So I know Steven doesn't want to put a lot out there into this story because it's really me doing that.
Yep.
But yeah, there's some personal beef that goes back there, and it makes sense why they don't. While Jaron doesn't want to approve it to be posted, but hey, keep posting people getting hit in the groin with balls and think that that's good for SEO. And who cares about SEO anyway? We care about consistent quality content.
Yeah.
Yeah, Steven, you take that.
Yeah.
So let's get into the BTS baseball stuff.
There we go.
So, it's been interesting because photographing these playoff games is a privilege. I get to shoot in amazing spots, but it gets boring shooting in the same spot over and over.
It's monotonous, for sure.
But that's what every photographer there really is doing. They have a job. So if the AP or Getty or the Phillies photographers are there, the Phillies might have 3 photographers. They put one out in center field, and their job, stay out in center field and shoot every picture of every batter just in case something happens.
That's the thing.
Follow them around the field.
Yep.
Try to get the shot.
You just don't know what's going to happen.
Well, then there's a person at third base in the dugout well, which is usually Mitch, which I've shared a bunch of his stuff lately. He's in the third base well. He stays there all game, and it's the picture of home plate, the batters, after a home run, the guy's running, and the players going nuts. Miles is in the first base, close to the first base inside dugout side, and he shoots from there. So they cover all the angles. I can't cover all the angles. I'm by myself, which is fine. But I have to choose where to. I've been given a good spot. Thank you to the Major League Baseball. It's an obstructed view spot, but it's fine. I have a way of working it out, and I don't block people if I stand up. So it works. It's where I shot last year. I got a lot of great stuff there. But I've also been testing out shooting in the outfield a little bit, preparing mentally and preparing with samples to see what works now so that if they do make the World Series, to see where else I could shoot.
You know what spots work, yeah.
Right, and that's what you need to do. You need to prepare.
Experiment for the big game.
See, as Brad told us, and I say it each week now, is you're not shooting fucking baseball cards.
Yep.
Not in playoffs. In the playoffs, you're waiting for that. You're not waiting. You're trying to get that moment. There is that pinnacle, that definitive thing. Like a Philly could come up and hit a grand slam, and they could lose the game 5-4, and that grand slam doesn't mean anything.
Well, and I think it's more about the atmosphere, too. It's not just about that individual tight shot of a player hitting a home run or a grand slam.
Correct. You just want to make sure that you're telling the best story possible, and that's not by shooting everything super tight.
It needs to be context in the photo, yes.
But before game 2 the other day, I feel down sometimes going into these games. Mentally, like down, like, oh, it's monotonous. I need to redo it.
It's tiring too. I mean, you put in 8 hours of work that day, and then you have to go and shoot until midnight.
Yeah, I put in long hours working in the studio first, and then at 3:30 or 3:15, I head out to the game. The batting practice starts at 5.
Where most of these guys are the opposite. They're kind of waiting. Their day starts at 4 or 5 o'clock instead of,
That's when their shift goes in.
Exactly.
But it's all right. I'm not complaining. I also was thinking everybody that's shooting is getting paid. I'm not getting paid, right? So I'm not physically getting paid.
Yeah, I mean, through content, I could see.
No, I get that.
Yeah.
I get that, but I'm saying physically, I'm not getting a game check for shooting the game.
Correct.
The AP, the Phillies, that's their job. They're getting paid to be there to shoot. I'm not getting paid to be there to shoot, but ancillarily, we get money from generating revenue and putting out content, and that's how it works. I'm not complaining by any stretch of the imagination, but a friend of mine, she sent me a video before I left for the game, or maybe I was in the car when it came in, and it was explaining why she ended up watching game 1, and she's not really a baseball fan, but she felt compelled to watch the game because she was following along with my stories and my images, which said that's why she got interested. And she was more talking about how you've got traditional media, the newspapers, that aren't as effective as a influencer, quote unquote. Well, just call me an influencer in this case, or a content creator. They're not people don't tune in to watch a game because of them, or tune in to watch an event because of them. They tune in after the fact to see what the results that they got in terms of pictures. but she found herself watching because of my influence as a creator, which then when I was sitting at the Phillies, because this happened when I was there, I realized that I should be sharing the behind the scenes look with the Insta stories, sometimes with a vlog, which I did last year. You could see the World Series vlog, which is great. But I was like, wait a second. My job is to all the people that follow what I do is to share with them an experience that they might not know or never be able to experience themselves, or want to see the inner workings, because we know that inner workings is what works. People love how it's made. They like watching the cake bake or something. Or whatever.
Exactly.
The cake bake, right? There's a reason you watched Julia Childs. So today we're going to make a souffle. You know? Lil, my grandmother used to call her mush mouth, probably.
Mush
for how she said, yeah, because she can't even get a word out. So she's like, today we're gonna work on a souffle. I'm gonna beat 5 eggs and gonna beat it into a puff. I sound like Bane.
No, you sound like who was it? Steve Carell in that one Jim Carrey movie. What was it? The one where he plays God, Bruce Almighty. When he's controlling Steve Carell, and he's like, and he's doing the news.
Oh yeah. Anyway, showing you guys the behind the scenes is great. So,
and again, it's not just about baseball. It's about the photographic behind the scenes, the inner workings, like you're saying, the working professionals and what they're going through, what it entails to be in that position, and how you're transmitting photos live, where you're shooting from, the difficulty of that position, all of that stuff that people just don't talk about. So I think that's the really interesting part. And like you said, that's kind of your role right now, is to bring that to the forefront to this audience.
And also, spam the broadcast channel.
Exactly.
With my images
spam
from
the
baseball.
shit out of people.
So I started to make behind the scenes stuff. I walked through the under area where I showed where the opposing team's locker room is as I walked past.
I found it incredibly interesting and fascinating just seeing the behind the scenes look of it. And we've done this before, where last year, I think during the World Series run, you did a whole vlog showing, where you're starting from, your day, getting to the stadium, and then ending at the stadium and everything in between. I just find it really interesting because, again, no one really showcases that kind of stuff because they're just there getting a paycheck. They're there to take pictures. They're not there to talk about themselves, where it's a little different for you.
Yeah, so I get a text from Steven. Oh, it's all about me. me. Oh, look, Jared talking about Jared.
Because the one story, you go in and talk, you're like, yeah, my friend, she kind of opened up my eyes and said, people are watching for me. It's all about me. I'm like, it's all about me.
Yeah, it's all about me.
But then I think the next story, I was like, this is actually really interesting. Keep doing it.
Thanks, Steven. So if you go onto my Instagram, there is a story feed that I saved that you can look at. I think it's BTS Phillies or something.
Oh, it's not Fro 59?
No, it's not Fro 59.
Why do you name your story highlights that?
Because every 100, you have to make a new one.
But why do you save every single story? Why don't you just save the important ones?
I think everything's important because it's all about me.
There it is.
I don't know, Steven. I just thought that's what you do because if it's a story, I don't want it to disappear in 24
hours. Everyone
else
has stories all organized and titled, and you're just 59, 56, 57, whatever.
I don't know if people watch them. I have no idea. That's the problem, is you don't get a lot of the interaction.
Yeah.
But I walked people through the stadium. I showed where all the photographers hang out. I took them out onto the field to see batting practice, which starts at 5, which explains why I get there at 3:45, because you have to walk, you have to get in, you have to make sure your pass is there.
Are you typically the first person there photography-wise or no?
Okay. Not at all. The Major League Baseball shooters are there sometimes at 12
No,
at noon.
I don't mean the MLB shooters. I mean more like the press.
No, so I found out that the AP shooters and a couple of those guys had a little picnic in the parking lot before around 1 or 2 o'clock. They got there. They did. The photographers, they got hoagies and they got pizza, and they were sitting out and probably drinking beer, maybe. I don't know. But they were before. This was at 1 or 2 o'clock, and they didn't go in till 3:30. But part of the reason they did that is there were 3 major events going on at the stadiums.
Oh yeah.
You had the Phillies game was going to be at 8:07. You had the Philadelphia Flyers home opener was going to be at 6 o'clock. They moved it to 6 o'clock, and then you had Mexico versus Germany soccer
football
at Lincoln Financial Field.
Which
That
I'm
had
sure that was
55,000
probably the
people.
biggest crowd. Yeah, exactly.
55,000 people for that, 46,000 people for the Phillies, and the Flyers probably didn't sell out,
I heard
but 15 or 16.
Every single lot was completely full. And there, I had a horror story from a friend saying that they literally left at 5 o'clock and drove around and never got in. They never got into the game. They just listened on the radio because they couldn't find a spot. It's insane.
Yeah, well, I heard that so the soccer game was delayed because the team buses couldn't get through the traffic. So,
I think I hit that traffic, by the way, because there was some kind of police escort when I was leaving work around 4 or 5 o'clock that day. And
Yeah.
I think that was the buses. It was 95 was stopped, basically.
Well, you now understand why I left a little early the other day.
You would have been.
Because
It took me over an hour to get home that day.
I just wanted to make sure I was in the lot. So the other photographers, they were in the lot. So no, they get there. A lot of those AP guys get there before me because they go up into the stands to set up remotes.
Yeah.
Like I showed that in the World Series vlog last year that they set up remotes. First base side, third base side for home plate, up in the rafters, kind of near 420 where I shoot.
Do they have freedom to put remotes wherever they want?
Well, they have to be in places that a person isn't going to mess with them,
Exactly.
and they have to make sure they're not going to fall.
God forbid they fall. I mean, if they're not secured properly, is there anyone double checking their work, their rigging?
Well, the photographer does it. They check their rigging, and so they're using magic arms, and then they use a
cable to really lock it in as a safety.
That if it does fall, it's not going anywhere. It's going to hang from the cable.
That'll kill someone. Yeah.
It could. So they put those places. They have to test them out, make sure they work. So they're there before me. But I get there because I want to go out on the field for batting practice around 4:45. I showed people that. I showed them the Sarah from Getty shooting. I showed them Tim from Getty shooting. I showed them other people on the field. I just pointed people out. I showed them the guy running around with the Sony DS mirrorless camera that broadcasts live, the live broadcast guy who runs onto the field.
Look like that's an A1 he's shooting with, right?
It was. Did you see? So when I did a whole story, I zoomed in on it. That was 15x zoom on the iPhone. It was blurry, and then as soon as I settled, it got sharp.
Well, every time for me, I zoom in, and then once it hits that 5x lens, it gets nice and sharp because it's using the actual 5x lens.
I went to
from that
15x on
I'm
that.
surprised 15x still looked good, though.
That's because I wanted to zoom in. I zoomed on his backpack, and I
just saying
zoomed in on the lens.
Digitally zooming in, how much at that point, you know?
Yeah, but then the stabilization and noise and sharpening that they did made it fine for sharing a story.
I can always tell, by the way, when they're using that A1, when they cut to like the player running around the bases or whatever after a home run, because it's always much worse looking than the broadcast feed. They must not have the colors dialed in right or the white balance set right on that A1, because it's always like a stop darker and underexposed versus the broadcast. And yeah.
If it was me, I would lock that picture style in and make it vibrant, and people would be like smacked in the face, and they'd love it.
But then don't the lights usually kind of dim and go a little wonky when they hit a home run?
So that's part of it too. They do blink the lights
so
sometimes.
Maybe it's just auto exposure.
That might mess
point.
with it. That might mess with it too, because they will turn the lights off for fractions of seconds, and you have to deal with it. So that's the same. That's because of the LED lights. That's just how it works. But I got so much feedback that people really love the behind the scenes that I need to do more of it with different events, which I tried to do.
I personally find that way more interesting than the final photos, you know?
Yeah.
Because it's showing these inner workings that you don't normally see.
Well, that's what I'm going to share this time around. But one of the biggest takeaways was sitting in the room, the auxiliary photo room, where Elsa was having a conversation. If you look up Getty and you just type in Elsa, she goes by one name. She's been with Getty for 20 some years. I think she was the first female sports photographer they hired. And she's been around for quite a while, and she's fantastic. She's at the World Cup. She's at the U.S. Open. She's like their main sports shooter that travels around. So she's got great skills with the camera and with the remotes and everything. But we were just having a really cool conversation. She was talking about certain buttons that she sets and why she sets them for recalling exposures. That was cool. We were talking about the 100 to 300 because I realized that very few photographers in the world have used the 1 to 3 and understand the versatility of a 1 to 300 2.8 at this point, over a 300 2.8, over a 400 2.8 in some situations because of the versatility of the zoom. If it wasn't a straight 2.8, it would be worthless. But being that it's a straight 2.8, I can follow a guy from from second base, running his ass off to third base, diving into third base, where I'm getting him rounding the bag at 300. and then pulling back to 250, 260, 240, 216 as they come around the bag. And as they go to home plate, I can zoom back to 200, 250, 260, 300 and get a play at home plate. That's what you get to do with that versatility. And it's a little heavier than a fixed lens sometimes, but I think most photographers that are out there shooting don't get what it is all about yet because they haven't used it.
So when you say she was telling you about her recall settings, is that like the lens-based recall button or preset buttons on the back of the camera?
So it's
and
a
what
little
is
bit
she
of both.
setting them to?
Good question. It was a little bit of both. She was talking about recall on the lens that she has like a low light situation option.
Okay.
Where it's maybe 6 stops different. She can quickly press that button and it gives her the exposure that she would have wanted.
So this is like an exposure comp bump real quick?
Not exposure compensation. It takes to a entire like
just a full custom setting to like, let's triple my ISO at that point or something like that.
One of those things.
Full
Like
custom
it's like one of those U1s or U2s or U3s.
Gotcha, okay.
But she presses the button and say, instead of being at 1/4000th at 2.8 at 4000 ISO, it will then switch down to 1/500th at 2.8 at 8,000, whatever,
Sure.
whatever the setting might be. She has it set so that if something major happens, and she prefers that over the auto ISO option.
Interesting.
So
See,
that
stuff like that you would never know. I know we always kind of poo-poo the recall buttons when we talk about lens reviews, but I do think there's a lot of important options you have with setting those recall buttons.
Yeah, and I was talking about what options I use when setting the camera, that I have the back 2 buttons by my thumb. One turns the camera from silent to not silent, which is a button I could get rid of because I could just leave it in silent all the time.
Yeah.
And I could put something else in there. But the other one that's more important right next to that is the single shot to continuous autofocus. So from single to servo is a really big one for me because sometimes I want to lock off on a batter and I don't want the focus shifting. And that's when I go into single. And then if they get a hit or something and I need to go into action mode real quick, I press the button again. It's just intuitive and second nature. Oh, she also talked about back button focus versus front button focus.
What is she?
A lot of sports shooters use back button focus.
Sure.
And she says that she feels that with back button, she might be a fraction of a second late on some things when shooting the picture. And I'm like, well, that kind of makes sense. Why does it make sense? Because now you're doing 2 processes. You have to tell your thumb to do something in the back and your finger to shoot the picture on the shutter. It's 2 different things you need to do and you need to worry about.
Yeah, but I think muscle memory, you'll get over that.
No, it's a brain thing. It's slower to do that versus having the autofocus right there with the shutter button.
Yeah, I've tried back button focus. I just think personally that it's a little outdated this day and age with the continuous focus. There's really no need for it in the mirrorless cameras. Now, back in the day, it made sense with DSLRs instead of focusing, recompose, and all of that. And I'm sure people are just trained. They've been using that and shooting that way for 20 plus years. They're not going to go back to now doing the front shutter button versus the back button focus. And it probably just works better for them, I guess.
Right. So let's move on to the haptic feedback rumors. Both Canon and Sony have filed for patents for 2 different things that will vibrate the camera in one way or another to let you know something. So maybe it will let you know if something's in focus. Maybe it will let you know that you're shooting.
I can't see it with shooting though, because if you're vibrating the camera, unless they're somehow really focusing that haptic feedback on just the shutter button and isolating it from the rest of the camera somehow, I can't see that really being an option because again, it's going to result in just blurry photos, Well, so that's one of the things they need to figure out. Even shutter shock affects blurry photos. So how is a vibrating camera not going to affect it?
Well, so it's just a matter of can they pinpoint the vibration that it doesn't pass along to the image sensor or the IS?
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
Or they're also filed in the patent was a little ball connector that you attach to your nuts and it vibrates your nuts via Bluetooth anytime you take a picture.
Ooh.
And for the women, they have a different option that goes inside, and that way if you take a picture, you can also have an orgasm at the same time. Imagine that. You're shooting at 30 frames a second, and every time you shoot, it vibrates for women and some men. Or there's a butt plug, so we could be equal opportunity. It could go for both, and it can vibrate then. And, well, where's Dan? I'm sure Dan would test this out. Do you know what Dan said the other day? Didn't he say, he's like, I saw your headline. I didn't know what it meant for your RAWtalk. I didn't listen to it, though.
He's like, what got stolen? I saw the title of the podcast, but, I don't listen. I'm like, well, if you listened, then you would know.
Yeah, I don't know. He's probably on terrestrial radio. But that brought up something funny at the Phillies game. Anybody that listened to the old school or watched the old school RAWtalk remembers Joe DeMarco. Joe was a guy that would come on the show, and he never had a microphone, and he would get yelled at. Yeah, and so he also worked at the Phillies selling beer, and his sister works at the Phillies. And we talked about his sister, Sam. I believe it's Sam. So I've run into her at the games a couple of times because where I shoot, she comes down that aisle and she's like, "Oh, hey, Jared. Hi. How's it going?" And I'm like, "Good, Sam." So I'm locked off on Bryce Harper at first base. And all I see is a girl in the background with a yellow shirt because that's what the people at the stadium wear when they're selling beer or popcorn or whatever they sell in the seats. All I see behind Harper is this girl with a bucket on her head of popcorn. Now it's a big clear bucket with boxes of popcorn in it, and I'm like, Jesus, it's Joe's sister. So I focus on her, get some pictures. I focus on Harper and get some pictures so that she's in the foreground. In the background out of focus, and then she's also in focus. And I'm like, that's Joe's sister. Her claim to fame, because you know that different people do different things to try and be memorable when they're selling their wares in the stands. Hers is being able to balance the bucket without her hands on her head as she walks up and down the aisles, up and down the stairs.
True talent right there.
Yeah. So there used to be at the Phillies, at the Flyers, there was a guy with curly hair in the 90s and a mustache, and they used to just incessantly yell Baba Booey to him because he looked like Baba Booey. Baba Booey. They're like, Baba Booey.
That's terrible.
There was this one woman, this is what she sounded like. Hey, ice cream. Hey, ice cream. So that was her. Hey, ice cream. I heard that my whole life growing up. I don't hear her. I don't go to the Flyers games very much, but there's always those people that yell. Joe is like, beer.
Didn't we get him to call in here a few months back?
Well, we got probably a year ago.
We
got him to scream it, but he's like, I can't.
He's like, it's going to be really loud, but
he's like, I'll go outside and do it.
And he gave it his all, man.
Anyway, that's
Ice
off the rails.
Bud Light. I can't scream because my baby is sleeping right now.
Bud Light. Oh man.
Oh, that's funny.
That's funny. Anyway, I have to send Joe's sister some pictures. She'll be happy about that. So haptic feedback. I can't believe you brought up butt plugs on this show, Steven.
I'm sorry, man.
Hashtag
every time. It's always top of mind.
Taking pictures. So if they can make it, I would like it because the Canon camera, I know when I'm shooting pictures because it blinks around the outside of the frame and you can visually see it. Great.
And the Sony, I really like. It gives you that buffer fill, that little vertical line that will show you that you're actually taking pictures and how long you have till the buffer hits. And then the Nikon is the issue where it's almost impossible to tell that you're taking photos.
It's impossible. I just sit there. I'm like, shit, I just took 20 pictures because I didn't know I was shooting pictures.
Yeah.
So if there could be some kind of haptic feedback.
And doesn't Nikon, it does have a white box around, but it's all the way on the edge.
Dude, it's all the way on the edge. It's tiny.
It's very hard to tell.
It doesn't
where
flicker
Canon's
well.
Is a little bit in from the edge.
Canon's is like a bigger box, and I prefer it. Like, I know when I'm shooting with Canon.
Yeah.
That's why I've been putting on the audio for a little bit now.
I just wish, though, that overlay wasn't white. I wish you could change the colors to something like red or green or whatever it may be. You can't really tell sometimes that you're even shooting with white.
It depends. It really depends on your background.
Especially on a bright day, you know?
Yeah. On a bright, sunny day. So that's haptic feedback. And the other rumor was around the R1 getting closer.
Finally.
I think, we're going to see an R1. Oh, the only rumors they talked about was it being double the resolution. That puts it at 48 megapixels, which puts it in line with a Z9, Z8, and an A1 at 50.
At that point, I mean, they're going to have an A1 Mark II coming out soon. The Z9 is going to be out for already almost 2 years now, right?
And we don't know there's rumors about a Sony A9 III. Don't know what that might look like. Like, what if that gets a 45 megapixel sensor? Then what, like, I don't know what they're going to do.
They really need to hit it out of the park because they're way behind the other manufacturers, which are going to be coming out with version 2s at this point.
But I don't agree. I mean, I don't think they're behind. I love the R3.
They're literally 2 years behind the other flagships is what I'm saying.
Yes, but that's in terms of resolution. It's not fully necessary. I've been using the 24 megapixels. I mean, I rather have the high ISO cleaner capability. That's why I shoot at 1/4000th at 4000 ISO at 2.8.
Yeah, but I'm not calling R3 the flagship. I'm talking about the R1 coming out.
Well, maybe it's going to, but see, still prefer having, at this point, I love the 50 megapixels on the A1. ISO doesn't hold up as nice. We know that.
Sure.
Will the R1 be able to hold up at 48 megapixels, or will they make it 30 some megapixels and have it shoot at 60 frames per second raw?
Well, I think no matter what, it's going to be at least 33 megapixels to have 8K video. There's no way they're going to have a flagship not shooting 8K at this point, especially when the R5 already does it. The other thing they're saying is it's not going to have quad pixel AF, which was the longest rumor, and I think that's what would really separate it from the current R3, because if they only give it a nice bump in resolution in terms of video and photo, is it really that big of an upgrade from the R3 at this point after waiting how many years?
Who knows what they're going to do? I think the biggest takeaway from all future cameras, and my prediction for the future of these cameras is pre-shooting. And I understand that Nikon has pre-shooting already for JPEG only.
Well, Canon has pre-shooting for RAW right now.
Well, not in the R3.
Not in the flagships.
And not the way that it's going to be implemented in a pro camera. You're right. In the R8 and the R6
and the R6 Mark II
II
is where it got introduced.
It's crazy that it's kind of taking video, but then you can go back and pluck a full res RAW file.
Yeah, but I think it's taking raw video for a second, basically, and then it's plucking that raw video file. But that raw video, I think, is more 12-bit compressed RAW. They told us it was, a full uncompressed RAW file. I don't really truly believe that. I think there is some sort of lossy data that you're getting from that raw file.
Could be, but for me, the future is pre-shooting and post-shooting of RAW files. Is at a quarter of a second. So here's how it will work. When you press the shutter halfway down and you start focusing, it's going to start buffering RAW files.
Yep.
When you press the shutter to shoot, not only are you getting the action that you wanted to get, you're going to get a quarter of a second before. It's going to add a lot of frames to the camera. It's going to add a ton of shots. But if that's the difference between being a split second off late, because there is a delay from what you see in the viewfinder to when you press the shutter. If you see it and you take a picture, it's already gone. And it's worse with certain cameras, like the Fuji GFX 100S. I noticed that it's gone by the time I see. Like I pressed I needed to start earlier. But the R3 and the A1, and the Z9, they're very close. I mean, we're talking milliseconds here. Yeah. We're talking fractions of a second. But that fraction of a second makes all the difference between early and late. Like the other day, Harper came up, and I was late on the swing because it was in the 9th inning. It was in the 8th inning, and I was already tired of shooting. We were up 10-0, yeah. And he ends up shaving off the bat at the handle, right? A broken bat. I got the end of the swing. I just didn't start early enough. But I would have had it early enough if I had that pre-shooting. And before anybody gets on anybody and is like, that's cheating, and you're using blah, 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 you should just be good. It's not cheating. It's the technology allowing you to get the better shots.
Yep.
And I think that's what's going to be the biggest takeaway from the A1 2 or whatever A1 firmware that's rumored to come out, because it's been a while since they've updated that firmware. So how are they going to do it? What are they going to reinvent? What's going to happen? I think if there's an A1 firmware, then that's going to push an A1 2 for a minute, but also basically make it a newer camera.
So the A1 will turn 3 years old this January. So we're talking a few months from now, it's going to be 3 years old. The Z9, I'm pretty sure it came out in November of 2021. Yeah, so the Z9 was December of 2021, but we got to play with it in November. So that's turning 2 years old next month, basically. And then the R1's going to be 2 to 3 years behind these other flagships. Now, again, I know you're saying the R3's been out, blah, blah, blah. But they got to do more than just a resolution bump. And I think Canon Rumors talked about the eye detection autofocus.
No, I don't care about that.
In the EVF is improved. It's like, does really anybody use that though?
I do not want to.
Well, I know you don't use it
because
because you have an eye condition and your eyes pretty much.
It's not just that. It's not needed. It's just not needed for what I'm shooting. At least I haven't used it because I don't think I need it.
Yeah, I just think you haven't really used it yet.
Though maybe in some situations, if I'm trying to get the guy in the outfield and it's finding the board, the face, the image on the board instead of the guy running, maybe the eye would have been like, I'm looking at him and I want the focus there.
Yeah. But to me, that doesn't stand out that much to a reason to buy an R1. They need some serious marketing power behind this new flagship. It needs to be something much different than just an R3 with a subtle bump in resolution.
We're gonna have to see what happens.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to see what happens. It's gonna all happen for the Olympics. It just will.
Yeah.
And we'll see if we get our hands on it. I don't think I'll get a hands on it to go to Africa with, which would be interesting.
Because they're saying what, Q1 of 2024 is when it's supposed to be announced?
I really think they'll do a development announcement and seed stuff out, which then allows us to get it in our hands.
Yeah, but
hopefully.
if it's Q1, I'm surprised they haven't done a development announcement yet. Because it's usually 8 to 12 months after the development announcement.
True. So maybe they're just going to announce it.
Yeah, who knows?
I don't care. I'll be happy to use it. Let's move on to the Apple iPhone 15 Pro Max comparison video. We did, I sent you a spike last night. Did you see I sent Steven the analytics on the back end, a graphic. Usually it starts to level off and swoop to the right. Well, it hockey sticked up. It took a weird bump. It slowed down and then it shot up.
I noticed the spike as well, though, right before going to bed, that it pretty much skyrocketed up, and hopefully that's hitting the recommended feed and spreading it out to the non-Fronos Photo audience at this point.
Yeah, so that video is doing good, but the video, what did we call that video? We called it iPhone 15 Pro Max versus $10,000 real camera in quotes. Can the 5X lens shoot sports like Apple claims?
But Jared, it's not $10,000 worth of camera gear.
Well, it's a Z9, a 70 to 200 2.8 battery. It's 2 CF Express cards in the camera.
If you add in 2 1 terabyte CF Express cards, that's like $1,500 almost on its own.
Yeah, so I just rounded it up to 10,000.
I know. Yeah.
But the point of that video was not to review the camera in the iPhone. People have done that, and they continue to do that. It was to look at the claim that their 5X zoom is capable of shooting sports. It's equivalent of 120 millimeters. So I took the 70 to 200, locked it off at 120 millimeters, and went to town trying to get samples that matched each other as best as possible. And I was able to get 5 of those roughly that matched.
And you didn't even do any side-by-sides, really, as in like taking a picture right after each other. You would take a picture with the Z9, put it down, do the camera, and it still looked like you took them side-by-side.
Yeah, that's just a testament to how goddamn good I am.
I was waiting for it.
It's so good. I am the greatest ever.
You gotta let other people say that, Jared.
No, I'm going to own it, and I'm going to goddamn say it, Steven.
I am the GOAT.
I am good at what I do. I'm good at what I do.
The biggest takeaway from that little comparison was that I think the iPhone is very close, still gets the Foca very wrong, but also it still gets it very right in certain circumstances. The thing that threw me off every time was the white balance. That was the biggest differentiator for me, was the white balance shifted more on the warm side versus the Nikon, where you can, adjust that raw file after the fact and really make it look perfect. Obviously, the over sharpening is through the roof with the iPhone still. I still think that's an issue with them. And with their raw files, their Pro RAW that they use on the iPhone, it's almost like it's still being affected like there is when you're shooting in the native app. There's still noise reduction. There's still some smoothing going on. You're not really getting a true RAW file, because if you open up Lightroom Mobile, for example, and take a RAW file in the 5X lens, it is crazy noisy because it's truly getting that raw data straight from the sensor. The thing I don't like about shooting in Lightroom Mobile is that it takes away the stabilization. You have no stabilized lens, and I don't know why it can't work hand in hand. For some reason, Apple, I guess, doesn't allow that with third-party apps.
Well, the thing that I learned, go watch that video so I don't have to talk about it all here.
Yeah.
But you lose if you don't have the f-stop data. What happens if you shoot RAW? What happens? But the moral of the story for Apple is they don't care about the pro. It's not about the pros. It's about just giving people the ability to open up their camera, press a button, and then have everything they need at their fingertips to do what they want
and
with it.
And make it look good enough.
That's all that matters. That's all that matters when it comes to that.
And straight out of camera, it does look pretty damn good for an iPhone. Now, again, I've always said it, you look at it on a giant monitor or a professional monitor of some sort, you could tell right away, night and day, that it's an iPhone versus a real camera. But looking on a small screen on the phone looks great.
Well, some of the comments were, I could tell easily, instantly. And it's like, well, if you saw them, if I printed them both out and you stood 10 feet away, you're not going to know the difference.
Exactly. From a non-photographer standpoint, if we showed those two pictures side by side to some random person, it would be very hard for them to tell the difference of what was the Pro camera versus the iPhone.
And I pointed out imperfections. I'm not sure why people were. You didn't.
I know. Yeah.
I showed you the bat. I showed you how bad it edged around the bat. Mm-hmm. But it's still not getting there. It's not. Even when the sensors get bigger, are people going to be happy with larger phones? And I saw someone mentioned it's not the sensors that are going to be the issues, it's the lenses.
Yep.
Because you can't have a small lens and expect to get the pro results.
I mean, they probably can't resolve that sensor resolution at that point.
Yeah, so let's move on to the last story, which is Sony celebrating 10 years of full-frame mirrorless cameras.
Happy birthday. Woo.
Happy birthday, because I was always behind Sony since day one.
Oh, you were a huge Sony supporter. Yep.
So I believe it was October 16th of 2013, Sony released...
That was the day you switched, right, to Sony?
Yeah, day I switched, and a big money truck backed up to the factory that I didn't have in 26. Did I have it in 26? I did. We just got there, and that was 2013. So no, I did not have the factory. I was still at my first loft. So in 2013, Sony does away with their hybrid DSLR style camera, the A99 Mark II.
The A mount. Well, I think they were still... I thought the A99 Mark II was like 2016 when they ended it.
Oh, I don't know when they...
Because they claimed they were still going to support the A mount.
They never supported the A mount.
They clearly stopped.
The A mount. So basically, what happened is they buy Konica Minolta, or at the time Minolta. They buy the technology and then put it into a Sony camera. Minolta had the D5, I believe. It was something like a D5 and a D3 or something back in the day. And I remember at Ritz Camera having those. And, they were solid cameras. They were getting somewhere. And Sony buys them, so they get all this technology. They start making some smaller cameras. They start making some DSLR style cameras. But in 2013, they released the A7, Alpha 7, and the Alpha 7R. Two cameras that absolutely blew, right? They sucked. I never used them, but they sucked. I didn't use them because they were slow. The autofocus wasn't good. The EVF wasn't good.
Sucked.
They sucked, Stephen. You knew you couldn't compete with a DSLR of the time, but that wasn't the point.
And I think just the form factor in general was absolutely terrible too. They were just boxy cameras.
They
that
felt
were small
bad in
light.
the hands.
Yeah,
bad grips,
Zero
bad
grip.
rubber. Feels bad. They still feel bad.
The rubber
mostly
still
today.
feels like shit. Yeah.
Even the A1 today doesn't feel ergonomic. I will tell you, the R3 feels the best in the hands. It just does. It's so
agree.
light.
Yep.
The Z9 feels good, but it's a freaking tank. So Sony comes out with these A7s. They start to build their explore. What are they called? The collective. They start focusing on a market that is emerging to people that would have money.
Yeah.
Young kids, teens, 20-somethings, 30-somethings who want something different. They don't want their grandpa's Nikon, because grandpas are still shooting Nikon. Like, when I was a kid, I used Nikon. I still use Nikon today because why would I go to the mirrorless world, right? So they do a great job courting the collective. So all of these people posting on social media are posting hashtag Sony Collective, hashtag Sony, and Sony blows up. One, they did a good job, right? The cameras still aren't good.
It becomes cool to shoot Sony.
Right, it became a thing.
Yeah.
And I remember going to the early Photo Pluses, and they had the orange carpet, which I laid on, and I was wearing an orange I Shoot Raw shirt, and I'm like, look at me, I blend in. I don't want to talk to these people. Sony sucks. And they're watching me from the side, and I become friends with all these people later.
It had to be Photo Plus, what, like 2015, 2014?
2013, man.
I don't know. Was it that early?
If they came out in October, yes. If October 16th was the announcement of these new cameras, then October 28th, 29th, or 30th would have been Photo Plus.
Yeah, I'm more talking about the time you were laying on the rug.
It was either 2013 or 2014. Actually, it was probably 2014 because in 2013, I remember at Photo Plus they built a half pipe in Photo Plus for Sony. Sony built a great booth, and they had one quote unquote pro. They had Gary Fong as an ambassador for some reason. I don't know why, but he might have been the only person that got behind Sony from day one was Gary Fong, because no working professional was switching to Sony at that point.
Yeah.
Even the A6 II, A7 II, and the A7R II didn't have it. The A7R3 started to do it. That started to be good. And then the A9 came out before the A7 III.
Yeah.
And the A9 was like,
that's what
holy
changed
shit.
Everything, in my opinion.
Yeah, a camera that has a stack sensor. This was new. That was
full frame,
completely silent,
sensor,
full frame.
Because they always had the RX 100s at that point.
Right. And not using the shutter, shooting at 20 frames a second where DSLR never went, and having lock-on tracking and IAF capabilities. That was awesome. And followed up a year or so later with the A7 III, and you and I out in Vegas for that Sony trip. They brought us out to Vegas. They took us to the desert. They tried to make us dig holes and bury us, but they didn't. We actually... I got stuck right in the go-kart.
You did.
My go-kart got stuck in the sand, and it wasn't my fault. I was following the person in front of me who was supposed to be, was it Chelsea Northrup in front of me?
Something like that, yeah.
It may not have been Chelsea. It may have been.
Didn't they go the wrong way or something though?
They didn't follow the path.
Yeah.
And when you're following someone in a go-kart, you're following the car in front of you so that you make sure you make the move. If they go right, you go right. They go left, you go left. And so we ended up stuck in a sandbank, and I had to get out of it, and we ended up getting back. That trip was fantastic. That camera was fantastic. That is over 1 million views.
That is still probably one of my favorite videos that we've ever done. We're going back 5-6 years at this point. It's the Sony A7 III real world review. Look it up. There's this whole little funny part about, the go-kart breaking down on him and everything. And maybe it isn't there who was in front of you. I don't know. I can't recall. But,
I'm sure we could see it in the camera.
Yeah. Because I think we GoPro'd you up.
I may have had a GoPro in my hands. No,
Yeah.
I may have had a GoPro on
I think
on
I
my
strapped
helmet.
GoPros on your helmet and like on the cart, and I went to town, if I recall.
Those were good videos. We don't do it like that anymore.
Well, because some of those videos, that video took me at least a month to edit, if I recall.
It's a lot of time.
It's a lot of time.
So that A7 III changed it all. That was a $1,999 camera, not $2,000. $1,999 camera that did video and did amazing photos, and Sony was there.
And that was the point, though, that it's $2,000 an entry level, quote unquote,
$1,999.
Okay, $1,999 price range, where they gave it everything. They did not hold back with that camera, and the fact that it was $2,000 was just mind blowing, because at that point there was really no full frame camera that was sub $2,500, $3,000.
Just wasn't there yet.
And this one beat it in specs, spec for spec. It blew it out of the water.
It did. So Sony celebrating 10 years is a big deal because they pushed the Canons and the Nikons screaming and kicking.
Everything. They really
did change everything.
Yeah.
They pushed. Nikon was obviously late. Canon was ill prepared to move into the world. They dominated the DSLR market.
I think Canon was still pushing forward. I guarantee there was a 5D Mark V already in production or testing, and they probably stripped that and went for EOS R.
You remember the comments?
I remember talking to the engineers and them being like, "Should we make another 5D?" And we're like, "No."
We were in Hawaii at a restaurant where we had surf and turf.
That was for the EOS R launch, right?
That was for the EOS R launch. Mm-hmm. And that was their dipping their toes into saying, like, we're here. We see that we're going to need to do this mirrorless thing. And the question that we were asked is, should we make a 5D Mark V? And I was like, fuck no.
They were basically thinking of not going all in on mirrorless just yet. They were going to basically branch off and do two separate, still stick with the DSLR line and then go mirrorless as well, but that's more of an afterthought. And we were like, go gung-ho on mirrorless. It's time.
I think their CEO went in one day, or whoever made the decision, and was like, stop what you're working on, go full steam into this. And then they come out with the R5 and R6 at the same time.
It's going on, over 3 years now with the R5, and it still holds up.
It's a little long in the tooth.
I'm just saying,
long in certain
spec-wise,
things
for that price point. I mean, you got the Z8 now too, which is definitely up there.
Whatever replaces that will be very good. Can we just say it's not all about the gear? It's really not.
But let's talk about gear.
The gear helps us. Well, we do. We talk about it, but people, please understand. We talk about this stuff and new stuff and what's long in the tooth just from the point of a professional who wants to get the latest and greatest, but you don't need it to get the job done. And I know this from going back 20 years when I couldn't afford camera gear, and I would watch multiple iterations come out and people updating, and I still was getting great results with what I had because that's what I had. So just understand that it's you don't have to buy everything new when it comes out.
Of course. Anyone want a 5D Mark IV, by the way?
Sony pushed the world forward. Sony deserves all of the credit for building those sensors, building the sensor plants, putting sensors into cars, image censoring for cell phones. They really had an idea of what they want. I think they had a 10-year plan that they wanted to dominate the market.
And if you recall, when
they did
A7 1, 2, 3, I mean, it was like every 2 years they were putting out a new model until they finally landed on the A7 III. Yeah, it was almost a year.
Every year they were updating. They really pushed the market forward, and for that, we all owe them a debt of gratitude, because we might be still in the old ages of not IAF and fast shooting and all the mirrorless technology if Sony didn't come into this world and be like, in a short span of 10 years, crush. I mean, within 6 years, they were taking major market share for mirrorless cameras because they were putting out quality stuff.
And we saw just going to the conventions like Photo Plus and Photokina, Sony was not even in the picture, not even in the same hall half the time.
Yep, they just got big. So congratulations to Sony, 10 years. Be interested to see where you take the next 10 years now that there's competition.
It's always healthy to have competition too.
Steven, I want to wrap it up so I can go do some lunch.
Let's do it.
You good? Anything else to add into this show?
Nope, I'm good.
I'm good. I gotta do lunch, walk the Doge, get some work done. Leg day didn't get done yesterday, so it's getting done Thursday before the Phillies game, which is at 5:00, and I'll be watching that game.
Me too.
So this is episode 73, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and by watching I mean listening. And that's it. Jared Polin, FrontNosePhoto.com. See ya.
Bye.